one of those in a moment because I would just feel horrible if I left without including her voice. But what does this woman do? She does it one tree at a time, one plant at a time. And it can be, if you look at the situation that we're in, it is overwhelming. But that gets us nowhere. You know, we have to be willing to take a step in the direction of healing the planet. And it isn't all up to us. Again, I think in our anthropocentric way, we think that we will heal the planet. But no, the planet will heal itself when we take out the obstacles that we have put in to the ecosystems that are preventing them from thriving. And also, it has tremendous self-recuperative processes. So if we help, we just need to do little steps. So it is possible for each one of us, like this woman, to replant a forest. In however we live our lives, to make small decisions. You don't have to reinvent yourself in a day or a week. But with the way we live our lives, to start to make decisions that say, am I living in ways that are mutually enhancing for me and the rest of the ecosystem? And when we say, geez, I'm not, then what can I do? You know, can I reduce my consumption of whatever it happens to be? Or can I choose a product that's made in a way that's more earth-friendly? It's those little decisions that start to accumulate in our lives, but in our communities, and that bring about tremendous change. And I think that when we have eco-theology, and this goes back to the first question as well, that we realize we're not in it alone. That, you know, that this is still God's universe, and that there is a wisdom that's inherent in this universe that is beyond our grasp. And in our humility, we should say, well, let me stop being an obstacle and let me allow it to do what it has done for the last 13.7 billion years without my assistance. And so if we can make these little steps, I think it's an important part. Let me give you an image from Hildegard very quickly, because I think it's beautiful. There's a notion in theology called Zim Zoom, and you probably haven't heard about it, which is fine. And Zim Zoom is this notion that if God is everywhere, how do you get a universe? Because if God is everywhere, there's no place for a universe. And so Zim Zoom says that what happens is God chooses, not out of necessity, but out of love, to limit God's self. And so God pulls back and creates this space, this void, where, well, you can put a universe. And so there's the universe and there's God. Still sort of related, but, you know, but there's distinction. Okay, fine. Well, Hildegard had a different sense of it. In one of her visions, she saw the cosmic person, which was Christ for her. And in this body of Christ was the universe. See, for her, the universe was like a pregnancy growing within the body of God. So it's much more intimate. It's much more in. It's not over there. It's inside. So it's still loved and nurtured. But like a fetus has a unique identity, so does the universe. And it has its own potentiality to develop on its own through the assistance of the mother. So it's a wonderful image of God births the universe and continues to nurture and love and protect the universe. What a wonderful image. A very useful image as well, but from Hildegard of Bingen.
I just love the richness of the images that are being used today. But I want to go back to a statement that Father John made. He asked a question. He said, with whom are we in solidarity? And I really haven't asked that question when it comes to ecology. Those words don't connect. And when you asked it, Father John, it struck me that how rich it is right now, this moment in history, that we have the second book of Revelation, of creation. And when I think of solidarity, I often think of the entire human family. And I think of all the suffering throughout the world, the wars that are happening throughout the world. But when I heard this morning the second book of Revelation, creation, I said to myself, there it is. That's what holds us together as one human family. That in fact, when we talk about that second book of Revelation and we talk about solidarity, it all comes together. That in fact, we're not separate at all. You know, I asked the first question this morning about what does Catholicism have to say to ecology. But you know, there are many other religions also on the planet and many different beliefs. And what becomes interesting or fascinating is how God continues to be revealed to us And that this ecological awareness that is now happening, this consciousness that is saying to us, you're one human family. You're all in solidarity. That in fact there is something that's happening, and there is a new consciousness that God is being revealed through this ecological awareness. And I think that solidarity is a word I hadn't heard before in reference to ecology, but I think it makes an awful lot of sense.
I guess part of that comes out of the whole awareness in terms of the, it is a word that John Paul certainly brought into the highest realms of his thought, but it's a word that's been evolving over a whole period of about 30 or 40 years in theological tradition. But the word really has to do with the whole sense of common good. So what we're dealing with now is not just the human common good, but the global common good and the common good of the commons. If we do not find this a world that is, well, one of the things that Tom Berry just talked about is how we come to a new enchantment. And unless we become enchanted again, and unless we begin to see the wondrous quality of the earth, then we can't create that solidarity. So it's developing not only an ethic, but an aesthetic.
I'd like to pick up where you left off, Father John. Specifically, that extraordinary statement by Pope Benedict in his talk to the priests there at Castel Gandolfo, that we need to listen to the voice of the earth. I think it was the phrase was obedience to the voice of the earth. And you know, the root of that word obedience is not just following the rules. It really means, and Henry Nouwen was the one who taught me this actually when I worked with him, deep listening. Oh dear is listening, the hearing sense, auditory, and the aub of obedience is deep. So deep listening to the earth, or to the voice of the earth, is what Benedict is calling for. And that's a very interesting sort of challenge, I think, for us, because in a lot of ways we have been deaf, I think. I don't want to sound too negative towards science, but I think there's a way in which science also listens to the earth, but in a very narrow way. We have science is about a certain kind of dialogue that is posing hypotheses, testing those hypotheses, and advancing bit by bit. It takes a very observant quality to be a great scientist, and it takes also insight and logos, if you will, the ability to see the logic. But I think that this notion of deep listening is something we need to explore more, and the significance of that as we go forward.
There's a word that Tom uses, autism. There's two A words, I think, here. The first A word is autism, that we have become so self-centristic, and we have become so anthropocentristic that we have forgotten how much we really rely upon the earth. And it was interesting when you talked earlier, Peter, about just those deep level water levels of the earth, those profound levels of the earth, that without that we don't live. And the other word, I think, comes from more, David Power uses this, and some of the writers on the Holocaust speak about an amnesia, that we've not only lost an amnesia regarding areas of horror that have gone on in the world, but in terms of humankind, but we've allowed an amnesia to continue because, I mean, I'm a very typical example of this. I'm a really almost